Hi, this is John Barber from IDW Publishing. You are listening to the Geekcast Radio Network.
You've just jumped inside the pull bag. Join TFG1 Mike and the rest of the comic reading crew here at the GCRN as they make their great escape into comics. From DC, Marvel, IDW, Boom Studios, Zenoscope, and more, we have everything you want to read right here. Transformers comics? Yeah, we cover that. He-Man? Yeah, sure. DC superheroes like Batman, Batgirl, Nightwing, and Batman Beyond? Yep, we have those too. How about TMNT from IDW and I Hate Fairyland from Image Comics? Yeah, we have all that here. Plus, so much more. It's all inside the pull bag here on the Geekcast Radio Network. So without any further ado, it's time to talk about the comics we are reading right now here inside the pull bag.
You're a Starfleet officer. You have a duty.
Hello and welcome to the Pull Bag. This is episode 360. That's right, folks. It's no Xbox, but it is 360, and we are quite literally the longest running podcast here on the Geekcast Radio Network as far as episode numbers go. I'm of
with
course,
Altered Geek being a close second.
Close second. Close second. You're at 328 or 329, so you're about,
Yep.
About
Very
30
close.
episodes off the mark, and by the end of the year, the pull bag, hopefully, as long as life doesn't interrupt it too much, the pull bag will hit 380 episodes by the end of the year. I was hoping to hit 400 by the end of the year, but unless I go crazy and do something like a daily show, there's no way I can hit 400 by the end of the year.
It can't be called The Daily Show, though.
Well, no shit. Of course it can't be called the damn Daily Show. Of course, as you can tell, Steve Megatron is here with me, and we are going to be talking about IDW's 2020. Basically what this is IDW Publishing, the comic book publisher, does Turtles and Transformers and G.I. Joe and My Little Pony and Gem and Back to the Future and all these other things that they do. This is their 20th anniversary year. So they put out 5 specific issues, and you will hear me say this throughout this entire episode, folks. I am so sorry. I repeat myself a lot in general, but with this, because we recorded every single segment of this out of order, I've had to repeat myself, so forgive me now. So they released 5 supposedly one-shot story comics, Star Trek, Gem and the Holograms, Ghostbusters, My Little Pony, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Some are one-shots, others feel like they're connected to stuff that you should have already read, and I was like, that's a little strange, but whatever. This is the first time we're covering a Star Trek comic on this series, or on this on this podcast. We will be covering more Star Trek stuff in the future. I don't know if Steve will be joining us for that or not, but I have plans for other Star Trek comics from IDW in the future.
I like Star Trek.
You like Star Trek. IDW 2020 Star Trek issue is written by Peter David with art by J.K. Woodward. The letters are done by Gilberto Lazacano. And the edits are done by Denton Timpton and Chase Marods. Basically, 20 years before he took command of the USS Enterprise D, Jean-Luc Picard sat in the captain's chair of the USS Stargazer on his way to become a well-respected Starfleet captain. But in this early mission, in his captain's career, he has yet to earn that respect, and we learn that his path to becoming the captain we know wasn't always an easy one. What I love about the IDW Star Trek stuff is that it's very photorealistic.
Oh, yeah. It looks very similar to their likenesses.
Yeah, very similar to their likenesses, but the style of the art, no matter who's doing it, it doesn't matter if it's J.K. Woodward or any of the other artists that I've seen do Star Trek, it is not like it's super photorealistic. It's almost like pictures. It's almost like and I'm not saying other artists don't do this, but this style, this specific way that this is done. Go ahead.
Animated version of the episode.
Mm-hmm.
It's better than animated.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just crazy. It's super cool. As I said, this story is basically a one-shot. The early days of Picard. I love how they set up the different internal monologues with the Star Trek colors, like Captain is gold, red shirts are red shirts, kind of thing. Like, I thought that was cool. I love the look of the Stargazer.
Yeah, the Stargazer is a pretty interesting ship. It's a Constellation class starship, which with 4 nacelles, and the ship is almost very 23rd century esque from the refit era during the late, it's like the very early 24th century, late 23rd century style design that they're still floating around at that point. And our first exposure to it was in season 1 of TNG, when they explained how Picard lost the Stargazer in the first place, and that it wasn't actually destroyed, but merely lost in a drift in space. Although the only thing they had wrong in that particular episode was the uniforms that were worn. When they were showing flashbacks, or like the kind of design anyway, when they were kind of trying to show what Picard was imagining in his mind of the battle and everything, the uniforms were still TNG season 1. They weren't the 23rd century late 23rd century outfits that they wore through the early 24th century, minus the undershirt.
Very cool, very cool. This issue mainly to me is, at the core of it, yes, it is an early showing of Picard as a captain. Obviously of a different starship than the Enterprise D, but at the core of this, it's basically how Dr. Crusher got her name. Is really the takeaway that I took from this.
Well, it was, but she was going to marry him anyway.
Right.
And the thing is this kind of shows that Picard was young and brash as becoming that first time captain, and he basically was doing his due diligence of almost cowboy diplomacy with like akin to Kirk, but it didn't work out for him because, again, he's a different type of character. And the same thing in the episode Tapestry with where Q takes Picard back in time after his artificial heart started failing on him. Again, they had the original series movie uniforms, the Wrath of Khan uniform thing that he was wearing in that, and he was very young and brash and was quick to jump into a fight, quick to do everything. And so, like, between his fight with the Nausicaans and that, where he got stabbed in the heart, which kind of mellowed him out a little bit before he became captain, and then adding to the fact that he's gotten this command now, he kind of has to look and act the part, even though the tendency is still in him, very much so.
Yeah.
So it definitely gets that, and then seeing Crusher, basically hated by Picard for even being on his ship.
Yep.
He reconciles later, which kind of adds to the animosity you see between the two of them at the beginning of season 1 and throughout most of season 1 of TNG before she comes back in season 3. But,
yeah. This comic,
there's a lot of animosity between the two of them.
Yeah. This comic was interesting because it feels to me like just I don't want to say a generic TNG episode, but it feels to me like just a one adventure kind of thing. It's like, yes, it is Beverly Howard, aka the future Dr. Beverly Crusher, coming aboard with her fiance and whatever, and Picard, as you said, basically telling her, you are not a crew member here. You are here, but I don't want you here. kind of a thing. And, we have... What are these villains supposed to... I never really got what the villain in this comic was supposed to be. What race is that?
It was just... Yeah, I don't even know. I've never really encountered that or remember it from anything. But even if not, it's basically a planet with civil unrest between, these two brothers or two family members that are leading two different sides, which that's a typical trope in any fiction. It's always, one has different political opposition. One's like very tyrantist, and the other one's kind of like a pacifist, for the most part. And so it's kind of a nice, it's just a general throw in there, just as a conflict to show that, Picard was in this moment where he's in need of desperate help, and the person who he's wronged is the one that's, doing it against all odds.
Yeah, and I love, obviously, the callback to, when he, makes the call to the ship, like, send somebody, just make sure they're not a crew member, kind of, like... How, like, that's not, like, I'm the least subtlest I am basically a blunt object in most of the things I do, most of the time. Subtlety is not my strong suit at all. I know this. Because I'd rather say what's on my mind and fuck everybody else, for the most part. Not all the time, but
yeah,
for the most part. But it just didn't seem like it was too subtle until it dawned on who, that he was referring that they send, and obviously Beverly goes down there and they end up, relieving the conflict and all that, and they get back to the ship, and he's like, Howard, it just doesn't sound right. It sounds better if it was Beverly Crusher. And the final page of the book is the two of them getting married.
Yeah, him doing his captain duty and marrying them. The great thing about that is that while she was down there, she was helping him and got him well enough, and they wanted her to, strip to show the whole, oh, well, you could be smuggling something, and she's like, not gonna happen, because she's like the most like, no, not gonna do it, you either let me do what I'm gonna do or you can forget it. And she smuggled in that extra communicator, and it was funny because Picard launched it at their leader and beamed him onto their ship, like, oh, I could just send him into space. I could, it doesn't really matter, it kind of pulled the upper hand. And because that was a very Picard moment, because he does a lot of that throughout the show too, of, there's an instance where he's dealing with an alien race, or and they need, like, he's always quick to one up them because he kind of knows the stakes and he knows what's going on before really they do, or he's able to outwit them. And he even did it with Q on numerous occasions and other alien races. But it was really cool seeing that. And then the fact that, I think he was referring to the fact that, she kind of crushed it out there. And he's like, well, she should be Crusher, because it just makes sense. Plus, it kind of alludes to the rest of the history of TNG. But it's a time period I wouldn't mind seeing more of in the comic universe. Or just to see that era of Picard before he became the famous captain in the Enterprise D&E.
Yeah, that's not, hopefully we'll see that in the new, CBS series Star Trek Picard.
I don't think we will. I think that's going to be very much of what happened since Nemesis. You're going to see a lot of callbacks because that's kind of showing his journey. And I'm not saying they won't have something that touches on way back then, but he's become very, like, according to the images and what they're saying, is he's become a recluse, very jaded towards Starfleet. He's resigned his commission. He was an admiral, never made it to ambassador like he did in most of the other scenarios where they show a future or something.
Right.
And he's just turned his back on all of it and gone to work on the farm in France. And it's kind of some event happens, and they're alluding to some of it could have been the destruction of Romulus. Some of it could have been, which would have happened after Nemesis anyway, like a few years after, which means it ties into the Abrams universe in a sense when Spock went to the past, and because all the red matter thing and Nero, and so I mean it could be that element, because he had a lot of strong ties with Romulus, and so that could have been part of why that's what they're alluding to anyway. It's hard to say really. Either way, he's jaded. He's a different version of himself that he's got to find a way back into it, and there's already been rumors that Data, or Brent Spiner, will be coming back as Data, who was B4 and Nemesis, and they resurrect his mind. I think it's going to tie perfectly into the Star Trek Online timeline. So either way, it's because there's that whole 20 years that's missing in the game too. So it would make sense for this to take a occurrence during this time period.
Yeah, and of course, obviously, Mr. Stewart is aged
getting up there
at this
too.
point, so it's not like. Yeah, I just figured they might show something of the early days.
And they might allude to it, but I think that most of it's going to focus on during the post-Nemesis era, and they're going to have some of the TNG cast come back when it's relevant. But for the most part, I think it's going to be pretty much this one-man show with a bunch of new cast.
Yeah.
But either way, this comic was great to see the inside look at Picard's persona and his early days.
Yeah, it was interesting. It was fun. As a you're the diehard Trekkie, I'm more the casual Trekkie kind of thing. As a casual Trekkie, I really enjoyed it. I think it's really super fun. I'll mention this later in this podcast, as well as at the very end of the podcast. Coming up later in September, actually no, October of this year, we're going to be doing, whether it's you and I, whether it's Ryan and I don't know. It all depends on who has time. Star Trek versus Green Lantern Volumes 1 and 2, another IDW thing where they did crossover between Star Trek and Green Lantern. So this is IDW and DC. And then Mirror Broken, which was the TNG Mirror Universe thing. And then episode 375 will be Star Trek versus Transformers. The animated series goes head-to-head against each other.
I still have to read that one. That's one that's it interests me because again it's the two franchises and that I grew up with, so it's going to be very interesting to dig into those. The Mirror Universe and the TNG is very interesting. I mean, I've read those, but it's very interesting just because we never got to see that time period.
Yep.
Other than in the Captain era in the William Shatner Star Trek books that he wrote.
Yeah. It's going to be very, very cool, very interesting. A lot of cool stuff coming up here inside the pull bag. What would you rate this 0 to 5 if you were going to give it a rating for the story?
Honestly, I'd probably give it I'm going to cheat, give it a 4.5 out of 5, just because, one, I got to be a rebel that way, but two, I really enjoyed the story, and even though the villains were throwaway, which is the only 0.5 that's being cut away, the rest of it was pretty solid.
Yeah. I'm also going to give it a 4.5 out of 5, so 4.5. I really did dig it. I thought it was really cool. Does it necessarily mean that the pullbag is going to go full on some of the other IDW ongoings for Star Trek? No, probably not right away, but this is our, this is us dipping our toe into the Star Trek universe at IDW, so who knows what's going to happen. Like I said, we've got 2 Star Trek Green Lantern volumes, we've got Star Trek versus Transformers, and then the Mirror Broken thing, to me, I've never really watched any of that. I've never, I know what it is. It's a mirror universe. It's an it's basically like Shattered Glass for Transformers. Okay,
that's where they got the idea.
Right, exactly.
But TOS and TNG, or not TNG, never had it. TOS had 1 episode of it. Enterprise had a 2-parter, and then DS9 had 5 or 6 episodes of it, I think. And Voyager had an Elseworlds 1 episode, 1 off, but it didn't actually take place in the mirror universe.
Right. Well, that's why I'm interested in it, is because of the whole Picard is evil thing. I want to see how this turns out. I want to know what this story is. So that's what's going on there. Where can the people find you online, sir?
They can get a hold of me on Twitter at SCP21, and they can find me on the podcast Altered Geek.
There you go. I'm, of course, at TFG and Mike. You'll hear about all that later and everything else. Coming up next is is myself and the Hologram Girls, or the Misfits, as Nicole likes to be called, with Amy and Nicole talking about IDW 2020 Gem and the Holograms. We'll be back after this.
Showtime synergy.
All right, continuing on in the IDW 2020 episode of the Pullbag. This is episode 360, as we've said. We just came out of not a galaxy far, far away, 5-year mission or whatever Star Trek thing for IDW 2020. Joining me is Amy, aka LadyWreck. Hello.
Hello.
And Nicole, BeatlesDiva Hailstorm. Hello.
Do I know you guys?
Please,
hello.
don't even. I will jump right through this computer.
I'll audit then.
Oh, don't. God.
Hey, you asked me to be on here. It's your fault.
Yeah, I know. So, we are continuing on, as I said, with the IDW 2020 series. This time taking a look at the Gem and the Holograms issue. They used to be the world's biggest band. Now, 20 years in the future, things have fallen apart. Will Jerica be able to bring everyone back together in time to save their legacy? Story in this is done by Sina Grace. Art is done by Siobhan Keenan. Colors by Kathy Lee. Letters by Sean Lee, no relation. Edits by Megan Brown. And the publisher... The IDW's had a lot of things going on since the last time we did one of these things. But the publisher now is Chris Ryall.
Woohoo!
So,
Chris.
Very happy for him. Yes, absolutely. And this is Gem 20 years in the future. Oh boy. And it's all about the Misfits. Of
Fantastic.
Course. Yes.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely.
Of course.
Which made sense to me. Do you want me to just go ahead and,
yeah, go ahead.
jump into my opinion?
Yep.
Okay, so it made sense to me because previously they have already kind of built that Pizzazz makes her own family. And so it makes sense to me that they'd still be together. Now, like if I was comparing this to the animated show, oh yeah, that one was a mess. She would have been the first one to end. So it's kind of cool that, this is kind of together. I like how the differences between the actual show and the comic are like huge, but there are some differences. And I like the fact that after reading this, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Pizzazz would keep her group together, and the holograms have pulled apart. So, woohoo!
Yeah, this was a fun read. This was a fun, emotional roller coaster. Kind of a mystery and whatever, and we still have pretty much the classic looks that Sophie and everybody else kind of established in the comic already. Pizzazz looks a lot different than she did before, like, because of the art style here. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, it's just, it's not the style of what the original version of the character was in the comic, but it's not bad. It's actually really, really good. And then, we get to a point in the comic where Kimber storms in. Eric, what did you do now? Because Eric's always doing something evil. What did you think?
Eric still looks like a prick 20 years later.
Of course he does.
This is the one thing that I don't know. I don't know why I don't believe this part. I don't think Eric would. I don't see Eric being part of the Misfits still 20 years later. Because either Pizzazz would kill him, or he would just storm off
He'd be in
pull
jail.
out his hair. Yeah.
He'd be in jail by now.
I don't know why. I would like to see why they kept Eric on.
Because... Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, Eric is still there. Yeah, Eric, woohoo. I really liked, I really have to say I liked Kimber's look. It was really good.
Yeah.
I find it funny that she's becoming the responsible one when she was absolutely not that.
Exactly.
20 years later.
Yeah, Kimber's on the business side of the music now. She's not doing the actual music anymore. The basic gist of this story, folks, is that Eric wants to tarnish Gem and the Hologram's reputation by using actual holograms of other singers to basically replace them.
And basically cover their songs.
Yeah, pretty much. And, we have the Kimber-Stormer relationship thing still going, I guess, I assume.
To me, they're not together, but they remained friends. So I could pretty much, my guess is Kimber got into the business, and she got business on the mind, and it kind of probably strayed their relationship, but they still remain friends. That's how I pictured.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, they were really light about how they didn't really. There was definitely not animosity between the two of them. She's there to just hang in I'm here to support you. But there was, they're really chill. The relationship is, not over, but just kind of chill. It's chill. They're friends. They're buds.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so the Misfits go on stage to concert and sing and all that, and they kind of get upstaged by the Fathoms. The actual holograms, and one of them walks right through Pizzazz, and this is her snapping point.
Oh my gosh, I love that panel so much.
It's good.
Oh, I love that look.
Yep.
Her anger has not cooled.
No.
In the last 20 years, so yeah, she still gets just minus the little skull faces.
Yeah, that's what's missing.
It's the skull faces.
Yep. So we go up to Northern California, and Pizzazz is on her bike, and she's riding up to Jerica's house, and she basically being Pizzazz, real discreet Jerica. It's tasteful enough, I guess. Of all the loiterers I've had to shoo away, I never expected you to be one of them. Enter Rio.
Yay.
Oh, stop it. You've already admitted you like Comic Rio. Don't even start.
Comic Rio's good.
Comic Rio's tolerable.
He's better than movie Rio, now stop it.
Oh,
sure. I have to say I like the bike.
Yeah, the bike is awesome.
I do too.
It fully fits.
I love Pizzazz's hair with just a little bit of the pink streaks in it.
Yeah, that's funny. That's cool, yeah.
I love her look. Her biker look is awesome.
Yep. So, she's there to try to talk Jerica back into this, and I love what they do here, where, she's laying on her lounger or whatever, and Pizzazz, it's been enough time that you're dyeing those roots. Ugh, sorry, bad habit. So we can clearly see that Pizzazz has changed, because she would have never apologized for that line.
I just love how Jerica's lounging out, but yet she has her 5-inch stilettos on.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fashion is passion, right? Woo-hoo.
Oh, for sure.
Fashion and fame. You never know. So she's basically there to convince Jerica to get the holograms back together, and it's too complicated. Fight with Kimber. And, so we get a bit of history of what all that was. And I gotta say, I love the art after Pizzazz leaves with Jerica and Rio. That looks so cool. It's almost right out of a Harlequin romance novel.
Yeah.
It really is. Because she tells Pizzazz that basically Rio supposedly got rid of all of her gem stuff, all of her clothes, all this, all that, everything else, they've put Synergy into storage or something or other, and then bam, they have this moment about, where she wants her father to be there, and Rio's like, well, maybe he is. And there are the earrings.
Aww.
Which is kind of funny because the last place we left off with them, they were like, their relationship was still complicated. Things hadn't, it was still, they broke up because, he basically said, you're one of, those people. You're one of the business people, and that's not who you are. That's not what I want. And it's just that's not where their relationship was. So things have changed dramatically, especially since he was, didn't like being manipulated either. And so the fact that he kept the earrings, I was like, okay then, all right. You were waiting for the perfect opportunity for these might be useful one day. Okay, all right. I dig it. I think I dig it.
And so we get Synergy appearing, and we get, the mother-daughter kind of thing from her and Jerrica. Meanwhile, Pizzazz is about to lipstick a Grammy. Should have been ours anyway.
Inside the house. She hasn't left yet.
Yeah, I thought she had left, but she hasn't left yet.
She's a snoop. I love it.
Yep. And, she basically says, well, the first show isn't for another 6 weeks, so we have some time. And we see Jerrica trying to get a hold of Kimber and everything else, and we go over to Hollywood and the house of Shayna, and bam, there's Shayna.
As fabulous as ever.
Yep.
Now, is that one of her daughters that's first introducing, talking to Jerrica?
I'm guessing that it is, because she says, so. My teen can watch the preteen, and the store is all online anyway, so. Yeah. My guess is that it could be either one of her girls, or it's, specifically her teenager. I don't know. That's a good question. I was kind of like, oh, okay. I just assumed that was daughter, but it could be teen employee. It could be my young adult employee, because I'm sure that she's over the age of 18 or something like that.
Yeah.
Right. To have a real job.
It'd have been nice to have a little, Shayna Tony throw in here, to see, kind of thing. Yeah, that would have been awesome. I'm not saying that the comic in itself isn't awesome already, but that would have been a nice little bonus. So Jerrica and Shayna go try to convince Aja, and she kind of holds out, but they eventually convince her, and then they go see Rhea. So it's basically getting the band back together, everybody except Kimber.
The problem child.
Yep. Yeah. So they go to her office, or what I assume is Starlight Music or something. And don't blame her, but we sent Ida to lunch early. Who gave you permission to let my... Oh, God.
I like that. I was like...
I love Kimber's...
What's going to happen?
Like...
She's... Your sister's been trying to contact you. You've deliberately ignored her. Eventually she's going to show up. It's just how it goes. Mm-hmm. She's going to crash your party the way you used to crash hers. So there you go.
I know, this is karma for Kimber.
Karma.
Yeah, exactly. And she's like, I'll talk to Jerrica. Just Jerrica. So... what in the hell is that? We saw a little bit earlier how, they kind of broke up and had a fight and whatever, but we didn't get all the details. So she and Jerrica have a conversation, and she's willing to hear them out and hear the songs, and everybody's like, I was just like, yes, I didn't say I'm back. Trust me, once you hear us, you'll wish we'd never split to begin with. So we get to all the Misfits and all the holograms and everything else, and people are giving, each one is giving their critique, and out of everybody, Pizzazz is like, "You're all idiots. That was perfect."
Well, as Pizzazz, even though she could be kind of a douche, she knows it's the industry, and she recognizes the talent. So I'm glad that she's honest. And
yeah,
and it's what she asked for. I mean, she asked for them to come back and be amazing. So it was exactly what she wanted.
It just proves to you that she has grown up.
Yep.
Yeah. And if anybody's going to open for a band, they better do a damn good job. And, this is what she expects.
Yeah. And they're all asking about, Shayna says something about, "We got the sound, but how do we cut fake us from the equation?" And Jerica and Pizzazz are like, "The less you know, the less you'll be incriminated." Yeah. Focus on the music. Let the Misfits handle the mischief.
Yeah, exactly.
And Jeddah ends up handcuffing the Stingers all together. And
I like how they talked about a mission. I'm like, yeah, that happened a few times in the TV show, so it's kind of like a little throwback there.
Absolutely. They locked Eric in the closet,
where he should stay forever and ever and ever and ever and ever.
Eric should never come out of the closet.
Okay, then. And they're going to be doing this. The one thing I said, or the one thing I didn't say about this concert, they're going to be doing this all on their own. They're going to be doing this without Synergy. So they have to get the costumes, she's going to get the wig, and all that and everything else. And that's one thing that I like, that, to my knowledge, this is the last Gem comic IDW has done. This is it. This is to my knowledge, there haven't been anything new. I haven't seen any announcements or anything like that. So for them to basically forego, this is 20 years in the future. This is Gem. This is Gem and Jerica at 40 or whatever, because they make a comment about that in the comic about, who wants to see Gem at 40 or whatever. And to tell that to Mick Jagger or Stevie Nicks or whomever, Joan Jett and the Blackhearts, people flock to their shows now, and they're not as young as they used to be. But they basically
they still have it. They can
yep.
Throw it down and
walk absolutely. It. But my point here is that, with them not using Synergy, Jerica is basically over the stage fright. She's done. She can throw the wig on, she can throw the pink dress on, go out there and just be Gem without having to have the hologram.
Yeah.
Because in the middle of it, she even throws the wig off.
Yep. I liked that. I loved that.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, I love the fact that she just pulls it off and there you go. Woohoo!
Yep. So
that wig looks pretty heavy too. That's a
yeah, that's a lot of wig right there. Yep. And so Pizzazz and Rio are going to check in on Eric and the ladies, because the ladies of the Misfits have Eric. I guess he's out of the closet now because he's trying to deal with technology. And I love Stormer's thing. Night classes and programming totally paid off.
Where's your tech rat when you need him, right?
Yeah, really? Yep.
Tech rat finally wised up and said, forget you.
Yep.
They should have brought him back. That'd been awesome.
Yeah, that would have been cool. So basically we have,
they could have used some new tech of his to hack the whole thing.
Yep.
Maybe they just ran out of time.
Would totally. He's in an insane asylum. He's actually who the Joker becomes. he goes insane because of pizzazz, and he runs amok around the world.
Nice.
So they have an amazing show, and Jem and Jerica gets asked all these questions, and then the final question, what's next? Are you back? There's just a smile, and then the end.
I like that look. I like that look at the very end there.
Yeah, that was awesome. That's very, very cool. I love that. And I love this issue. This is a fun little story. It's a little, vignette of what possibly could happen in the future for Jem and the Holograms. It was a nice character story, mainly for pizzazz, for the most part. I mean, Jerica had some character moments, but all the other characters, I feel this story is written in the sense that everyone has already read the Jem main ongoing, and everything that entails and whatever. And that they know the character by now, so they don't have to give full-on development to Aja, Shayna, Stormer, Roxy, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. What did you think on a whole, Amy, after reading this?
Pretty much the same thing. I mean, it was kind of nice to just see what that would look like for 20 years. I was like, okay, what's next? I want to know what's next now, too, because I was like, okay, well, we're starting back up. Let's do some more with this. It felt like it went by so fast. I was like, oh, it's done already? Dang.
Yep.
They didn't jip us on anything, but still, I just felt like, oh, it'd be great if we could continue. But it's all good.
Yep. Absolutely. Nicole, what about you? Final thoughts and all that good stuff?
Oh, I had fun reading this. It's been a while since I've read Jem and the Hologram, and it proved to me how much I missed it. and I like seeing them, and I got to give kudos to the artists who actually aged them. What they do. They look mature. Look like they do, and they still don't look like they're 20s, which is great because I wish I still looked in my 20s, but I don't. So, I mean, there's so many other stories here that I'd like to know. Is Shayna still with Tony? What's going on with Kimber and the business? Is she successful, or is she just totally mad? Or what's going on with Aja in Portland? Why Portland? Yeah. And so there's so many questions I have here, and is in a way you don't need it, but it'd be nice.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else before we move on to the next book?
Bring more. Some older rock stars. I want some more older rock stars.
I agree. I wouldn't mind reading another ongoing of this, but I'm sure that someday we will get somebody that'll step up to the plate and do that.
Let's hope.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Do we want to rate this? What are we going to rate it? 0 to 5, ladies.
0. I hated every moment of it.
Oh, stop it.
Oh man, I don't really have a whole lot of criticisms with this. I'd say a good 4.5, just because I had a little too many questions.
What about you, Amy?
A solid 4. A solid 4, I think, is fair. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm right there at 4.5. Very, very well done. Like Nicole said, and we have so many more questions. And I want this creative team on, basically take this timeline. You've started here. You've started something. You've given us a little bit of history. You've given us a little bit of what happened in the fallout of Jem and the Holograms. But you've also brought them back together. So now they're back together. What happens next? At the same time, you can still go back and explore whatever happened to break them up in the first place.
Yeah.
So, all right, folks. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to head on over to the firehouse, and we'll be back after this. Up next, we've got the IDW 2020 Ghostbusters issue. I'm, of course, TFG1 Mike. You've heard me throughout the podcast. Joining me for this is JT from Saskatoon. Hello, sir.
Good day, good day.
Yes, yes. And I apologize to Cena Grace, the writer on the Gem issue. If I mistakenly mistook him for a female, just based on his... I didn't look at the guy's name. I've never even heard of him before. When you see a name like Cena Grace, you, at least I'm like, I don't know. So, sorry about that, Mr. Grace. This one is written by Eric Burnham. Story art is done by Dan Schoening. The backup story art is done by Tim Latty. Colors by Luis Antonio Delgado. Letters by Neil Yucate. Edits by Tom Waltz, assistant edits by Megan Brown, and the publisher is Greg Goldstein. As I've said, folks, IDW has been going through some major changes over this period of time, so you're going to hear different publishers from this company at the point of this recording or this episode, because they've consistently been changing. Currently, the publisher is Chris Ryall, so there is that. And yeah, the IDW 2020, it's supposed to be one-shot stories to get, I guess, new readers into it. As we've said, they're doing Star Trek, Gem, Ghostbusters, and then we've got My Little Pony and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles coming up later in the podcast. Have you read all of these, or did you just read this one? Have you gotten all of these, or what was your interest or disinterest in these?
It's IDW, of course I was interested. I've read them all except for the My Little Pony. Not that I don't like My Little Pony, just meh, you know?
Well, I'll tell you about it later because it's coming up next after this. So, Ghostbusters, all of these issues are kind of different. All 5 of these issues are very, very different. I was not expecting a character page in this. I was just expecting to go right into the story, but with the way the story is, you kind of have to know who the characters are, the old guys, the new guys, all that good stuff, that kind of thing. And I originally did think these are all one-shots. Some of them reference things that I haven't even read yet.
Yeah, I mean, this one shot, for those that don't know, folks, we're taught the IDW, like the Ghostbusters that we're doing here, is focused on the crew of Ghostbusters from, originally they debuted in the Sanctum of Slime video game on Xbox. The first comic appearance that I remember seeing them in was in I think it was during the Mass Hysteria storyline, where they get like this, the Ghostbusters of many worlds, and you see like the original Ghostbusters that Dan Aykroyd had, where they're like traveling through time, and then their first major appearance in a comic was during the Crossing Over miniseries, where the Ghostbusters of many worlds come together, and what's her name, that Holtzman from from 2016 Ghostbusters, because I just think Answer the Call Ghostbusters is a dumb way to label them, and Lady Ghostbusters just kind of sounds trite. And
well, there is the other name.
Not Ghostbusters?
No, not that. It's Fembusters.
I actually haven't heard that.
Really? Seriously?
Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, so...
You gotta get out more.
Yeah. Holtzman and what's his knob, Ron Alexander, who I think is Dan Schoening's kind of take on Chevy Chase. Mm-hmm. That crossover is like, they decide that the OG Ghostbusters are wrong for hogging the multiversal portal tech, so they try to create their own ripoff version. That somehow... It releases the OG Ghostbusters' entire store of ghosts from the containment unit, and they have to go across time and space to collect them all. And like, it's basically...
It's Ghostbusters with Pokemon.
Kinda, yeah. I mean, it's kind of like the the Star Trek Q Conflict comic series where like Q and Trelane and all these other like powerful cosmic entities get together, like, you know, it's Kirk with Tuvok and Seven of Nine, like, you know, all the different Star Trek casts are mixed together, and it's an all-star sort of thing with crossing over. And then it's really good. If you folks haven't read it, check it out. It's a lot of fun. I think it's like 8 issues, so 2 trades worth. But, you know, we got this one shot, which is basically 20 years after the original film, I think, because they say 20 years in the future, but they don't say 20 years from what year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in the far-off world of 2004, I mean, we're getting to Transformers the movie timescales here. And these new ones this is after the events of the Sanctum and Slime game and the crossing over thing, which I mentioned, and, you know, now they're taking on what the plot is. Now they're ready for an easy gig, something like a simple haunted house, but they better be careful, because it never goes right with the Ghostbusters.
No, it never does. Doesn't matter who's on the team, it never goes right.
Yeah.
You can have all, like, personally to me, and I don't want to get into this discussion with you because you're a super fan, and I don't hate the 2016 film, but I don't like it either.
Okay, first of all, I'm a super fan of many things. I am not necessarily a fan of the 2016. I have championed the movie.
You defend that like it's your last breath. Now,
no,
my point is,
I have defended it. I had not my last breath, but please continue.
My point is, those 4 female characters are amalgamations of the original male characters. They're female, kind of, if you look at that. I mean, I think it's insulting to say that Melissa McCarthy's a good Bill Murray, Peter Venkman, you know, whatever, but, and obviously, what's her name, Leslie Jones's character, she's actually the niece of Winston, but...
Well, I mean, Ernie Hudson, because when I saw that film, I was like, where in the hell, I've seen every other cameo, where, of course he's Patty's uncle, like,
yep.
Duh.
No,
I mean, Patty's Winston, I think McCarthy is, like, the Ray of that crew, and they just, of how much of a living piece of wood that Ramis was in the original film, they just flipped it with Holtzen.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I like the film, but the only reason I champion it so much is I've just decided to take a stand about use such extreme negativity about things, like, you know, especially the guys that are like, you're ruining my childhood. You know, it's like,
no, that's what Michael Bay does.
Yeah.
Thankfully, he didn't do that in the last film. But my point is that while that seemed to be like, hey, we're just going to take the original characters, change them up a little bit, make them female, yada, yada, yada. This comic, this is the first time we've covered anything IDW Ghostbusters, and we will be covering it at some point in the future from the beginning, but again, it all comes down to timing and money and everything else, and there's just so much life going on right now. I can't go out and buy however many trades the main ongoing Ghostbusters series has. Now, if people want to donate, that's great. But here's the thing. There are many, as you've said, there's a multiverse of Ghostbusters. There's many different characters. They don't all have to be like, they don't all have to have the main characteristics of the original 4 guys that were the Ghostbusters. And that's the thing with this, is you have these 4 Sanctorum of Slime people that all have different ways of dealing with stuff. And it's a fun little story. I think it went a little too fast, and I thought it was really weird that they put a backup story in this, because at least all the other issues were just one 20-page story. This is like, what, 2 10-page stories or something? I don't know. I don't dislike the fact that they did it, but I just find it weird is all.
Yeah. I mean, one of my favorite things about this one-shot is, you know, like you said, each of these new Ghostbusters have their own deal. They have their own personality, and I think that's key when you bring a new crew of anything together. I mean, you look at Extreme Ghostbusters, and say what you will about the series, what worked for me about that was you find 4 different personalities that, it works. Like, there's a lot of reasons why it shouldn't work, but they all kind of just work together.
Absolutely.
Plus their driver Jeff.
Yeah. So basically, we've got 2 teams here. We've got the Sanctorum of Slime team going out to this new haunted house that just appears, and we've got Egon doing his kind of shtick back at the firehouse, and I don't know what Ray and Peter and Winston are doing. But these new guys and gal go in, and it's empty. It's just a normal house, and I do like the quips, and I find that interesting. Like, all right, let's get this one done fast. Yeah, sure is super creepy in here, guys. I mean, we've all heard Dr. Stance's stories about stacked books, right? I may wet myself.
That was that was one of 2 things that I noticed reading this, like in nods to Ghostbusters continuity, because most of the IDW comics are considered to be kind of in canon with the original movies. It goes Ghostbusters 1, 2, the video game, and then the comics. What's his name? The dude in the hat, Alan. You see him a couple times in the a couple of the ongoing series. He's Janos's nephew.
Yeah.
They have like that whole thing where they set up, like, I think it's in the original ongoing, where like this demon tries to get Ray to, like, imagine a new form of the Destructor, and the other guys manage to distract him, and then Ray is like, no, he's still the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, because they make a comment of locking this thing into a form where his main attack strength is size, so he doesn't get all, like, godlike. And later on, Janos is shown up and Alan's in there. I thought that was a real cool nod to their own comic continuity. And then, the asymmetrical book stacking. No one stacks books like that, right?
So they're in this house, and they face this ghost, and they think they've trapped it. They get back to the firehouse. Before they get back to the firehouse, Alan sees that he's got some sort of slime or something on him or something, and so they go back to the firehouse. They go to put the ghost in the trap, and the trap is empty. Okay, well, that's not good. So then they go, to the library, because, got to find stacks of books somewhere.
Yeah. And isn't this the ghost from, like, one of the first episodes?
I think.
Or similar to, because I remember it's been years since I've watched the series, but I remember there was an episode in the very first season where they deal with, like, a haunted house sort of thing like this. And
I wouldn't put it past the IDW crew to reference something like that, because that is very cool and very canonical. So that's probably where that came from.
I just like the fact that, like, it's really, they get in, and this, sweet old lady is like, this house appeared out of thin air. Nobody lives here. And then she's like, well, aren't you observant?
Yep.
And since you're Ghostbusters, then you all must die.
Because apparently this dude wants all Ghostbusters dead.
Well, the spirit, and God, what's the new black guy's? I forget his. I'm just looking at it, the voice here. Just please excuse me, folks. Sam. Sam or no, Gabriel.
Gabe.
Sam's the blonde, and, well, we know who Alan. Gabriel tosses what looks like a pocket calculator at the ghost feet, and it blows up and it ruins its human visage. And then Sam throws out a trap, and they trap it. And, it's Miller time. and then the house disappears. And I kind of, the way they're slimed with like this pink or purplish mood slime looking stuff, I kind of made me think of that episode where Peter's telling the flashback tale of how their suits after Gozer got possessed by like residual ecto energy from the containment unit, and they have to like fight ghost doubles of themselves.
Yeah, yeah, that's what this kind of is. It seems, or not really, but that's what it looks like. So, yeah, they do all this research at the library, and we find out about what the ghost does and whatever. Well, apparently the ghost latched onto Alan's suit, and well, the ghost wants to destroy the Ghostbusters, and yeah, we've got laundry with a head sticking out of it,
just like that episode.
Yeah.
And I just like how it's got like the classic marionette, cross piece on Egon, and yep. I can almost see Harold Ramis doing that in a film. Like if this was like an ad or like part of the movie or something like.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, and I've never known if IDW has the actual likeness rights. I mean, I know it's all due to artist interpretation of what the original male Ghostbusters look like, but I don't know if they have likeness rights to Bill Murray or any of the other guys. But the page here where Alan says, and I think I might have brought it right back to the firehouse, where you see Egon looking over his shoulder. If that's not Harold Ramis, there's something wrong with you, because that looks just like him. A little bit more angular,
yeah.
But I mean, it's very much Egon.
Yeah, and I like how they make this thing manifest, and it's like this ghost T-Rex thing. And then Bridget, like where Sam's like, we're let's go zap it again. And she's like, first time we zapped it, it turned into a dinosaur. What do you want next, Godzilla? And he's like, no, ma'am.
But that's kind of what you're going to get. Not really, but...
Well, yeah, but I mean, just, I love that. It's just like, no, ma'am. Just how it backs down. Then Alan steps up and, kind of rallies, and they come up with this plan that basically they just need more power to trap the ghost. In fact, Alan gets swallowed by the ghost, and then he gets spit right back out when he zaps it with the proton pack from inside, which I thought that is like one of, but not the only, very action hero moment that they've had in these comics.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of up there in badassery as Winston sacrificing his love with his girlfriend in a very, I hate to say this, but it's a very Spider-Man One More Day kind of deal.
Oh no!
With Tiamat. Oh, but yeah, they finally strap into like Con Ed, and they manage to trap the ghost. But then they also black out the island of Manhattan.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, they get all this power. They get the ghost trapped, like you said. Blackout of Manhattan, and that's how it kind of ends. I liked it. I thought it was interesting. I have not played the video game. I don't have console video game system, so I just know what I've read online about the video game. So I like the team. I think the team is cool. I think the team is all their unique individual characters. I like that they're kind of working with the old guys as well. I love the art. I love Dan Schoening's art. Very, very cool. Once we get into more Ghostbusters coverage at some point here in the pull bag, maybe we'll see more of this team and that kind of thing. So I mentioned to you off air that they kind of this one again. This issue is very weird. They did this story, and this first story ends on page 24. Well, apparently they had a little bit more room in the book to do this second story. What I love about this, not only does he is Vigo show up, you've got the Ghostbuster Ghost logo, you've got the Ghost in the Ghostbuster Ghost logo opening the narration here. I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, and I think that's a nod to, and now we'll go back to the real Ghostbusters, interstitial when they came back from commercial and the cartoons.
Yep.
I love that. I do like this, the whole stop the presses seems like after our lead story was finished and turned in, there was room for more. You do know what a gift is, or what a gift that is.
Yeah.
Like, just, okay, beat the fans over the head, why don't you?
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, it focuses on Alan and, oh, God, I just forgot her name. Bridget.
Bridget.
I also, when you get the shot of their ectomobile, it's like an ecto Hummer.
Mm-hmm.
It's like this badass looking thing. And they're checking out a haunted house where the family's been having the exact same nightmare for days.
Yep.
And something goes wrong. Like, there's like the zzz, because Alan's using like Ray's ecto goggles. And when the lights come up again, Vigo's there swearing vengeance on his bloodline.
Mm-hmm.
And I also kind of like the artist here, which, forgive me, was Tim Latty.
Yeah.
Just the way it's exaggerated kind of proportions there on Vigo, I kind of made me think of like Demon Vigo from the end of Ghostbusters 2.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's, very much so. If you look through the panels, through the first, so we see Vigo, he's sitting in his little chair there. You go to the next one, your bloodline failed me, the Ghostbusters foiled me. And then you see the next panel here, and I shall have my revenge at last. The further you go into his face, the more demonish he looks.
Yeah, and then he
obviously later...
Gabe wakes him up, and it was a Sandman, which is another reference to one of my personal favorite episodes of the original series. And he's like, yeah, some dream. And, I mean, heavily suggesting that this is going to be followed up down the line. Vigo comes for revenge, and,
Hey, if there's one way to get Vigo back into the Ghostbusters, it's probably going to be this comic. So, I'm all for that.
Yeah. And that's, if you've never played, like, the original, like, the 2009 game, which is essentially Ghostbusters 3. With the storyline, and it interconnects elements from the first two films. I love the fact that you can go down the stairs into the basement, and then there's a sub-basement, but down the first basement there, Vigo, like, somehow after Ghostbusters 2, Vigo got stuck in the painting again, and you can go downstairs and talk smack to it.
That's funny.
Yeah.
But you really shouldn't be talking smack to a demon.
Well, you don't talk smack because in the video game you play this mute, rookie. You don't even get to, like, name your character. It's just... Like, because they got the original voices, and Peter, like, Murray's like, don't get attached, Ray. And
what happened the last time you got attached to something?
Yeah. And actually, because what is it? I think it was Peter or Ray, you go down to the basement because Slimer gets loose, and one of the two talks smack to Vigo.
That's funny.
Yeah, and if you're like me and you have, like, the actual physical comic book, the next page, or next couple of pages, is basically ads showing, like, the Star Trek and the My Little Pony, and the other 2020 issues. I like the Star Trek. I would like to check out the My Little Pony one, but the Star Trek one, it's a tale of young Picard when he had hair.
Yep.
And when
which we've covered already in this episode.
Yeah. I love the fact that it goes back and it looks at the time when Picard and Wesley's dad and Beverly were on the Stargazer, because that's something they never, like, they had the Stargazer in a couple episodes of TNG, but they never actually had an episode set there.
Yeah, Like we've said, IDW goes deep in their lore when they're doing this, and they have the Star Trek license. They do some Star Wars stuff, but obviously Marvel has the Star Wars. Like, I think IDW is doing Star Wars Adventures, which is basically, not necessarily saying it's just for kids, but it's aimed at younger readers. My buddy Optibotimus was going to be on this part of the episode as well, and he didn't really like it, and he's about as big a Ghostbusters fan as you are. And I don't know why. I don't know. Maybe it's because he didn't know the team. Maybe because he had never played the video game. I'm all for, at least in the Ghostbusters world, kind of seeing different and new characters, because we don't want to see the same old adventures with the original four. So I like that. I thought that was cool. Amy, Nicole, and myself are coming up next with the My Little Pony issue. Where can the people find you online, sir?
You can find me online with the Comic Connoisseurs podcast with my co-hosts Ben Carver and Red Ink. Talk about everything in and around comics. Sometimes we agree, usually we don't. And you can also find me on the social medias at JT from Saskatoon.
Awesome. Coming up next, folks, we're going to head to Ponyville.
She's an evil enchantress. She does evil dances.
Beware! Beware!
If you look deep in her eyes, she will put you in trances. Yeah, was that supposed to scare us? Wicked, she's a curse. Then what will she do?
Just you wait, Twilight. Some ponytails really are true.
Then she'll gobble you up in a big tasty stew. So, watch out!
Alright, well, doesn't bustin' make us feel good? It is now time to... And the only reason why I'm going to say the sound that I say after I say this is just because of certain things that happened a few years ago. It is now time for My Little Pony. Ugh.
Well, whatever, you enjoy it.
Come on now. You know what happened a few years ago. I was done. I couldn't even read any of the other IDW stuff after 2016. I just couldn't. You know why. And I'm not going to reveal that on air because people, if you're friends with me on Facebook or follow me on Twitter, you know what happened to me or what happened with me in 2016. So, but yeah, this is the first pony thing that I picked up, or the first pony thing I've read since we did our initial few episodes that we did we've done more than a few, when Nicole and I had done pony coverage for the Pullbag a couple of years ago. So this is My Little Ponies IDW 2020. The writing is done by Ted Anderson. Art is done by Tony Cuisto, I assume. I'm probably screwing that up. The colors are done by Heather Breckel. Letters done by Krista Meisner. And, how many times has IDW changed publishers? I swear to God. Edits are done by Bobby Curnow. The publisher is Greg Goldstein. I need to actually look up and see who is the actual publisher currently, because I don't know anymore. IDW has been in such a consistent change over the years, as of late. So, yeah, ponies that get sent back in time.
Pony time!
Yes, this was interesting. Them going back and seeing their younger selves.
I think it's adorable. I love seeing the baby main six.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. So basically, this is all Rainbow Dash's fault and the storm. Of course, it's Rainbow Dash's fault. Now, time for the big finale. She goes to do her rain boom, and she shatters time.
That's awesome. what they really needed right now was Doctor Who's. That would have been awesome. You talk about time paradoxes, and you don't have a Doctor Who reference. Missed opportunity.
Okay, yeah. So I guess this was made before Chris took over, but yes, Chris Ryall is president and publisher, with John Barber being editor in chief.
Okay.
So
cool.
There you go. Amy, what are your thoughts on this? Because we've never talked ponies with you, at least not on air anyway.
No, I haven't actually been really great about keeping up with it. So, but I thought it was a really nice, contained story. I thought it was really cute. I could see all the characters like this was them. I could hear all their little voices in my head. I've watched the show, so I'm a fan, but I haven't kept up with the comics very well. But yeah, I liked this. I thought it was really cute that they got to go back in time and meet their past selves. So I was just like, yeah, it's definitely a My Little Pony episode. Woohoo!
And I love how each of them reacts to it.
I know. And it's so genuine to their character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we have Rainbow Dash's huh? What? And then Fluttershy just basically screams at each other, and then Pinky's like, hiya, hiya!
Pinky wants to play with anyone that's like Pinky, so...
Well, of course.
Yep.
She's got her dream come true here, man.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And, you know... Yeah, Rainbow Dash is like, you can't catch me, you weird imposter.
So, Rainbow Dash.
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'll say this. The writers on My Little Pony, on anything that I've read from IDW, they really get these characters. Like, Applejack, like, I can hear the voice actress in my head. Like, all of them. I can hear Pinkie Pie. I can hear Fluttershy. I can hear Rarity. I can hear Twilight. I don't know who would have done the younger voices, but I can still hear their main voices being, like, aged down a bit.
Yeah, it would be a little higher pitched and a little,
yeah.
less confident, because they are littles.
Yep.
It's all good.
Yep. And Doc Brown would be very, very, very disappointed in all of these ponies, though, because so many time paradoxes happen in this, because they reveal stuff about the future. Like, I get that they have to do that. I'm just making a little joke because of Hello, Back to the Future, and you're not supposed to know too much about your own future and all that.
Yes, but Celestia, she fixes it.
Yep.
Yeah, she fixes it. That's true.
She fixes it. She fixes it. So everything that you're going to say, you're going to forget anyhow. So.
Yep. Yeah.
I kind of had an idea from the very beginning that that's what was going to happen. Oh, they're going to be mind wiped. Just wait. Just wait and watch. Mind wipe.
Princess Celestia with a neuralizer. That's an image we don't need. Giant mythical unicorn creature holding a neuralizer from Men in Black.
Yeah.
I do love the story.
She makes this look good.
Yeah, exactly. I do love the story. I love that they basically have to find the elements of harmony again in order to go home to, control the portal. So I love that they have to do that. I love that they have to do it all together. I think that's really cool. Again,
that's what I was going to say.
Go ahead.
With the elements of harmony, having them to go find them, it as a reminder to them what brought them together. It also reminds them that, because I think both the comic and the cartoon has kind of like fallen away from, each one of the main six are in charge of an element. And I guess it's kind of like a refresher of, you can't forget this. Yeah. This is important. So.
Yep. And they all look really, really good. Both the older selves and the younger selves. The backgrounds are amazing. Again, it's one of those things that these are, all friends that all bring something different to the party. That, they each have their own skills. They each have, their own abilities. Like Rarity distracts the bear so they can get the element of harm. So Rainbow Dash can swoop in and get the element of harmony that the bear is essentially sleeping on. Yeah, this is just a fun little story.
It literally felt like they just took it right off the TV screen and put it on the piece of paper.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, from the pony comics we have read and covered on this podcast, that's essentially what they've done. I mean, they've created their own stories. They've created like the main ongoing. I think it's still ongoing. I don't know. I haven't paid attention in 3-4 years or whatever. But they've been able to tell their own stories without basically having to remake the TV series. They've added character development and things like that and whatever else because. Folks, there is a thing called, original ideas. You don't always have to remake everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Disney. Looking at you, Disney.
Mm-hmm.
And everything that you own.
Mm-hmm. Sadly.
Acquired. Everything that you've acquired.
Hey, but if you want to hire me, I'll do it.
Well, they keep publishing stories about these the old guard dying and passing away. Like I saw a story a couple weeks ago or a couple months ago about how one of another one of the old animators from the olden days has just passed away, and I'm like, oh god, this is so depressing. And then of course there's the story about how they refused to let some grieving father put Spider-Man on his son's tombstone. That's a whole other bag of worms we'll get into later.
Yeah.
But this is fun. This is interesting. Like Nicole and Amy said, Princess Celestia finds a way to have it all work out, and everyone has to say goodbye, sadly. And I love this little scene how they each say goodbye to each other. That's so fun. Like basically, Pinkie Pie jumps into Pinkie Pie's arms and all of that, and you see the little ones, and then you see the older versions of themselves. And at first, I didn't think they got transported back to the right place because of the characters that show up when they get back. And I'm like, oh wait, yeah, that's the right place. Yep. And then, oh wait, I remember everything. Just as Celestia set it up to be.
Yep. Friendship is magic.
Yep, friendship is magic. Magic is friendship, all that good stuff. Yeah, this is fun. This is a nice little, back to the past kind of thing. And again, that's what...
Back to the past or Back to the Future?
Well, both, actually. And that's what IDW is all about in this 2020 series, where they've got, these various things. And I love that Gem went to the future, and I love that this went to the past.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, that's cool.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Any final thoughts, Nicole?
I thought that this was really cute. You could kind of see where it was going. So it was a little predictable, but I'm not complaining about it. Because seeing Pinkie Pie with young Pinkie Pie is just absolutely adorable. I love it. Yeah, I think there was some good elements. I'm going to give it a solid 4 because I just thought it was adorable. So.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Final thoughts, Amy?
I agree. I think it was a fun little read. I really enjoyed it, and I would give it a solid 4 as well.
Awesome. All right, where can the people find you online, Nicole?
Don't find me. Not joking. You can find me Yeah, as long as you don't bring me problems. You could find me, just Google BeatlesDiva, and that's Beatles like the band, not the bug. It's been a while since I said.
Yeah, it has. And yeah, people, all you customer service people over in Indiana, don't message her on Facebook, please. Amy, what about you?
Gosh, don't even. Oh god.
Yeah, I know.
Heard this story. You're gonna have to tell me after we're done.
Okay.
Where can the people find you, Amy?
So you can find me on Twitter. It's the best place to find me because it's brief, short, and to the point. And I really like Twitter. So, Lady of Wreck. Just type in Lady of Wreck, and that's the first one that pops up, and it's me. Woo!
All right. We'll be back after this to close out episode 360 of the podcast with myself and Joe Reed as we talk about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles IDW 2020 issue. We will catch you, folks.
Cowabunga, dude.
Booyaka chow!
It's Booyakasha. Come on
Turtle
now.
power!
There you go.
Maybe she's in a different world, different timeline, and that's how they say it.
I always thought that the way he said it. Come on, Michelangelo's awesome.
Yeah, it is Cowabunga, but it's Booyakasha is how it's...
Okay.
It's yeah.
Okay, I always thought it was chow, but it's okay.
No.
My kids
We'll be
run
back.
around the house saying it that way, so I'm like, okay, that's what I thought it said.
Turtle power.
Woo!
Booyakasha!
It's Booyakasha.
Booyakasha! Booyakasha! Booyakasha!
Booyakasha.
Booyakasha! Booyakasha!
I think we just hit a level 9 Booyakasha!
Alright, folks, this is it. You've heard me repeat myself over and over and over again here in episode 360 of The Pullbag. I am, of course, TFU and Mike. Back with you. Joining me is Mr. Joe Reed. Hello, sir.
Hello, hello.
And we are here to talk about the IDW Publishing 2020. What this is IDW celebrating their 20 years of being a publishing company, and they did Turtles, Gem, My Little Pony, Star Trek, and Ghostbusters as they're supposed to be one-shots. Some seem to be connected to the series proper, but anyway, supposed to be one-shots. Turtles one, I love the cover. I think the cover is super cool with the Technodrome and the Krang bots and the turtles there. Absolutely love it. It is written by Paul Allor, art by Nelson Daniel, letters by Sean Lee, edits by Bobby Curnow, publisher is Greg Goldstein. And I've mentioned in this episode and in other episodes recently that we've been doing IDW coverage, the current publisher of IDW is Chris Ryall, because IDW has had some management changes, and these books have apparently come out during all of that. So currently the publisher of IDW is Chris Ryall, so there's that. This one is just what this little story so far thing says. Long ago, the TMNT stopped Krang from terraforming the Earth. Now, 20 years later, Krang's dark legacy continues. Will the older, more jaded turtles be able to save the world again?
Bum, bum, bum.
Bum, bum, bum. I know you expressed slight, I don't want to say displeasure, but maybe a little disdain after reading this.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was interesting because it takes place, this is what I expected the IDW 2020 to be.
Mm-hmm.
A single story that takes place in the past or the future, and this obviously takes place in the future. This doesn't, maybe, who knows? I mean, we know Bobby and Tom and Kevin, Bobby Curnow, Tom Waltz, and Kevin Eastman always tie back into other things, and all the other TMNT writers do. Maybe they'll tie into this at some point, but this to me is, you pick this up at a comic shop, you don't have to have read the last 5, 6, 7 years of IDW Turtles.
Yep. The reason I get pre-jaded by issues like this is that since it's not in continuity and it is either, well, a look in the past would be interesting, maybe not so much for Turtles, but for some of the other books. Yeah. But when you're looking 20 years into the future, like, okay, you're going to write something that actually may or may not be canon ever because, things change, writers change, they may decide to kill the Krangs off in issue 150. Mm-hmm. And so, 2020, you do a book across everybody, and maybe this is a book that people who haven't picked up the series are going to pick up, but probably not. It's just like a weird little money grab, and being that it is one issue standalone, usually it's a little quick, and so I come into a lot of issues like this pre-jaded. The first time that I read it, when I picked it up, I did that thing that I do a lot where I start reading and then start skimming, and then about 2/3 of the way through the book, I'm just kind of like flipping through and picking out a word or two. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad to say that I went back and reread it for this episode. That's the right thing to do.
Yes. And we have, what I love is we have Mikey narrating throughout the entire thing. I think that is super cool.
Yeah, it's either him narrating or his brothers at a particular, because they're, it's kind of like a MTV confessional. Somebody's set up a camera and the turtles are talking to the camera, and depending on what's going on, they're like coming in and out. Yeah. It's mostly Mikey now, and that's for a reason that we discover pretty quick.
Yeah. Yeah, so, and even, like you said, even Leo has to do it. He's like, meanwhile, do I have to do this?
Yes.
And then he vanishes like a street phantom. So, I guess in the future, Leo has the street phantom tech.
That's not street phantom tech. He's like all Zen monk and knows how to go to the astral plane.
Oh, okay, there's that.
Yeah, the cloak is where I think you got that from, but it's what I think a lot of the future versions of Leonardo that we've seen. I'm thinking back to some Mirage episodes where they go to the future. Leo becomes kind of the Master Splinter Zen monk, can meditate and levitate, and glows blue, has psychic ninja powers because he's just so attuned to his ki. And I think that's what this is representational of. I think it'd take him more than 20 years to get there, though. But, that's okay. It's Leo.
It's okay. I think my favorite part about this entire book, and it just, they better do this in the main ongoing. Adult pepperoni, finally!
It's huge.
Oh my god, she is so huge. You ready to do this, pepperoni? I love that. That was so cool. I love that they did that. And she's got all these guns on her and everything else. And wow.
I wonder is that a gray headband? Are they like ninja masking her up? I thought it was like laser vision eyes, but it's gray and there's fabric.
Yeah, it kind of looks like a gray headband. Very cool.
Clever. All right.
So we have black for Slash, we have red, orange, purple, blue for the main turtles. We have yellow for the new turtle, which we will talk about at the end of this little episode, because we've got other TMNT stuff we'll be doing in the coming weeks and months and yada yada yada. So they mention, and this really got me. Mikey continues his thing, and they mentioned Donnie and that they weren't there for him, and I'm like, oh no. You people, you better not have... Oh, good, Donnie's alive. He's just on a separate... don't do that again. You can't kill the same turtle twice. IDW, please, no.
So the interesting thing that happens in the beginning here... So it's in the future, the Krangs are going crazy, but, Mikey's leader. They mentioned... Yeah. Leo is so burdened and so overcome by whatever it is that he's doing that Michelangelo is the one who steps up. And I remember reading that thinking, no, but at the end of it, he would be the one to do it. Donnie's too busy, Raph's too angry, and Mikey can grow into that. And I think, he would probably be the next best choice.
Insurance salesmen were pushy. Oh, a fellow checker, eh? Keep practicing.
Yes, I completely agree with you on Michelangelo's ascension to leader as far as he's the character out of the four of them. He is the character that can grow into being the leader. Like you just said, Raph's too angry. Donnie's off doing tech stuff. Leo is in this astral plane stuff, and you look at Michelangelo and you look at everything he's been through in the IDW books. Even though this is a one-off story, as I said earlier, I fully expect them to tie this in somehow at some point. Maybe when we get to issue 150 or something. I don't know, because it seems like there's no end in sight for IDW Turtles, which is great for us. Hopefully they find a way to work this in there somehow. But yes, Mikey is leader. The Krangs are just going everywhere. Leo comes in, does astral plane stuff, and Raph and Pepperoni do their thing, and Raph kind of gets caught by the Krang, but Leo comes through and slices him out of there. And I love the image of where Raph was like, just like old times, Leo, it's good to know you still... I love this image of them fighting. I absolutely love this panel. It's so friggin' cool. And then, obviously, Raph's like, right, because Leo disappears again. But
yeah, he pops in, saves his brother, and then checks out and goes back to what he was doing.
Yeah,
there's a little resentment with Leo in that throughout the issue, but at any time they need him, he's there still.
Right.
So there's a weird thing going on. Maybe it was deliberate or they're hinting at something else, but no, when he needs to be there, he's there, and they should be able to count on him for that. But they don't seem to, which is weird. But maybe there's a reason.
Yep. So Leo goes sneaking around the place and does his astral plane thing, gets out of the astral plane and basically slices into a couple of Krangs and is like, "Where's the Technodrome? No one here is going to tell you anything. I hope my brothers are doing better than me. We're not doing so great here, Raph. We're doing fine as long as there aren't any more." No. And it's interesting. So, they say about, the Civil War and the Krang War, or another Krang War or whatever. And, we see Donnie show up, and Donnie's kicking all kinds of ass, and they're like, "We're trying to find the Technodrome. Seriously? Isn't it obvious that it's in, that one building that,
looks like a Technodrome?"
Yeah, kinda. Like, it's kind of obvious there. I love So, in Comixology Guided View, I get the big splash page of the Technodrome blasting out of its thing. But to the right of it, it has Mikey, Raph, Donnie, and Ghost Leo, or Astral Leo. It zooms in on each of their faces. And, wow. So Leo found it, and, they're going to do more fight. This is basically a fight issue. I mean, there are stories here, and there are character arcs here, but it's basically a fight issue. Leo has to go do his thing. I love, I might make this my next Facebook cover photo. Mm-hmm. I love the photo of Mikey, Pepperoni, Raph, and Donnie running. Oh, God, that is such good art.
Oh, nice.
The colors, the way they're running, the way the background of the ground not necessarily folds into their feet, but the way you can see how each of them moves. Absolutely love that. Donnie, though, gets carried off by a Krang trooper, and he gets saved by Leo. And Leo was able to set off the bomb that he planted, and we get back to, more monologuing and whatever, and
Not many, not one backup, many backups, and the Krang they're taking over Europe with many technodromes that they've activated.
Yeah, so they're just gonna go out and fight the good fight and keep fighting the technodromes, and I think I like this a little more than I probably should, only because of certain aspects of it. Like I said, pepperoni and how Mikey's the leader and how all that happens, and
I like usually happens when I reread a comic for reviewing it like this. Is I like it more the second time than I did the first time. Yeah, I do. It's okay.
I love the final shot of them basically skydiving into the Eiffel Tower.
That's another good piece of art.
That's another good piece. This thing is filled with great art shots. What I was going to say a second ago was I love that they're doing something outside of the U.S., outside of Japan, outside of their history, outside of what we would normally know them to be doing. The fact that in 20 years, the Krang Civil War or whatever ends up ravaging Europe, and the Turtles get to go to all these awesome places and whatever. I love that they use that as the setting in this.
It is, and it is nice to see that they are getting out and that there's this globe-trotting thing. That also opens up an opportunity for the comics to, again, take the Turtles someplace they haven't been. They're a genre-bending tool, and you know what would Ninja Turtles meets Angels and Demons be? You know?
Oh boy, do we have something to talk about here in a minute then, because damn. We got a couple of things to talk about. What would you rate this 0 to 5 as just a one-off issue, just a cool story kind of thing?
It being that I think it's missing something to be a good place for people who haven't read the series to jump on and get a good sense of what it is. This doesn't give you a good sense of what the Turtle book is about, and I think for that reason we're probably sitting at a 3.5.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. This has to be somebody like us, or somebody like anybody on the Turtle Flakes Facebook group over at the Turtle Flakes podcast with Rob Luther, Josh O'Rourke, and what's the other Josh's last name? Josh Otello. People know who he is. Yeah, this is mainly for us. There are some single-issue IDW things, like Free Comic Book Day stuff that they do that kind of catches everybody up to where they are and where they're going. That's okay, but this is, even though it is a one-shot story, it's mainly a one-shot story for us that have been with the franchise for so long.
I have always liked Cowabunga.
Huh?
I made a buddy.
On the half shell, they're the heroes for. In this day and age, who could ask for more?
Before we get out of here, we got a couple things to talk about. We are, because of life, and as I've said before, life comes before podcasting. We're so far behind on TMNT in this podcast. We did just release episode 357, which was the Invasion of Triceratons arc, which is 76 to 80 of the main ongoing. We will be doing at the end of this month 81 to 84, which is the Kingdom of Rats arc. Next up is Batman TMNT 2, which really has nothing to do with the main ongoing for IDW. It's a DC IDW crossover story that they're doing. Or they did. But yeah, so in the main ongoing, the reason why I'm talking about this now, for those of you who haven't read it or aren't caught up yet, we kind of are. You're still reading on a regular basis each issue, right? Okay, I figured you would, obviously, because, you are you.
Yep.
I'm not caught up, but I still, take the news and things with a grain of salt, and I see all the IDW press releases and whatever else, because I'm on their list. So, we're in the middle of City at War, it is City at War, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Something happens to Jenica. Jenica is Splinter's student. She was formerly Shredder's student in the Foot Clan. something happens to where she needs a mutant transfusion, and I forget which turtle gives her the transfusion. Leo's blood. Okay, Leo. Well, that kind of makes sense because he was the Chunin. Leo gives her his blood, and that's how she gets turned into the new female turtle. I have no problem with this because she was injured and she had to have a blood transfusion, and the fact that they're turning her into a female turtle, this is to me, and I haven't even read it yet, I can just look at it and see what Bobby, Tom, and Kevin, Mr. Eastman, Mr. Kernow, and Mr. Waltz are doing with this. They're progressing her character. They are not forcing a female turtle on us. She is not Venus. This is not the 90s. This is not the next mutation. This is everything these creators have done in the last 5, 6, 7, however the hell long. I think this has been going on.
8 years.
8 years. Yeah, 2011. Yeah, 2011. So IDW Turtles has been going on for 8 years now. In 8 years, they have done so much to homage and to pay tribute and to
make
further
things that were initially silly.
Exactly. And to further the mythos of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And again, you have one of the original co-creators on this as well, so I highly doubt they would just do something just to do it. So I'm all for Jennika becoming a turtle. I'm fine with it. I have no problems with it. Everybody that is just coming into it not having read the past 90-something issues, and I know we talk about that all the time, like, oh god, 80 years of Batman, where do I start? Or 80 years of Superman, or whatever, or 80 years of comics, where do you gotta know your information first. You gotta, you can't just write an article online or do a YouTube video saying, oh, they're going all woke, or what. I hate that.
Yeah.
If there is one fucking word in or phrase or
woke and offended, get irritated.
Well, I can get offended and I'm fine, but everybody gets a little too offended, I think. But this whole woke thing, that has nothing to do with this character story. There are plenty of awesome females. Jennika herself was an awesome female in this series. You've got April. You've got Angel. You've got all of the other females that have been in this series. As I said a second ago, they're not just doing a female turtle to do a female turtle. It's a story driven.
That is, I think, that where they're going to succeed. Where a lot of attempts like this have kind of seemed ham-fisted. One, I mean, Sophie Campbell has she's had a hand in creating this character, and it's something that they've all been working on behind the scenes since issue 50 something. They knew they were going here, but she has, I think, the handle on how to do this without it being fan service, political, or what's the word, being the front of the parade, championing this sort of thing. This was the most natural, organic way to make this happen that it possibly could have been. We didn't see it coming, we didn't smell it coming, and the one thing that I think the reason people have problems with this is that all of us, we need to get to a place as a society where when there's characters in the back of a van and one gives a blood transfusion to the other one, that, oh my gosh, it's not a female turtle. Oh my gosh, it's a fifth turtle. We need to get to that point. And I think because this transition from Jennika into what is the fifth turtle was so natural and organic and unforced that this is where that happened. But the people, the fans, the people who didn't like Venus are kind of steering it back toward, oh no, it's this social political thing. No, it really couldn't have happened any better.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like I said, even though I'm not there yet, I'm not, up to it yet, I'm perfectly fine with it because, again, as you just said, it's character specific. It's this specific. It's that specific. It's not just, hey guys, here's a female turtle. It's not that at all.
and she's not drawn with breasts on her shell. She's not drawn with hips. She's not sexualized in any way. She is a fifth turtle.
Yep.
And that none of that is necessary, you know. And had they done that, it would have been like, no, can't do, nope, that's just too much and too weird. And it's insane to the people that I thought understood what IDW has been about, have looked at this and completely misread the situation, or are imagining what it's going to turn into. And it's the worst possible outcome. They're going to imagine the worst thing. This is totally Venus. She's going to wear light blue and be Leonardo's girlfriend. Like, no, that's not. And you're that shows you what kind of faith you have in this team who've turned cheesy, horrible characters like Bebop and Rocksteady into incredibly entertaining, full-fledged, depth-carrying characters.
Yeah, because nobody would have done the thing where, their names come from musical styles. Like, that was done here. Bebop and Rocksteady, that was done in this IDW Turtles thing. So we are on board. We're absolutely on board. I'm even looking at some of the things I've shared from Tom Waltz and from Michael. I'm going to get his name wrong. Dynalius. I'm probably saying it wrong. He's one of the artists that does stuff. He just shared what's going to be an exclusive cover for, it's a RE cover for issue 97, where it's a yellow background and it's Jennika with her weapon, and she's got the yellow mask and she's got arrows on her back. It looks super cool. What Michael says is, I proudly present my Conquest Comic Store Jennika variant for TMNT 97. This is the Daystorm version, limited to 750 copies. Make sure you head over to their site to check out the other two variations. I'm so happy how this issue is turning out. It's action-packed and huge things happen, so make sure you get in on City at War and the road to 100.
Man, I wish I could afford all these cool variants.
I know, right?
I just can't.
I know, right? That's one of the reasons why I love trade paperbacks, is because most of the time there's a cover gallery in the back, and you at least kind of get to get it for digital. Again, that's why I love digital now. I understand, you're an old man and you want print and you want to feel it and you want to huff it and whatever. The other big news, besides the Jennika becomes a turtle thing, just announced, we're recording this just as San Diego Comic-Con is starting. This episode is going to be, it's supposed to be out on the 10th, but whatever, of July. Anyway, TMNT, IDW, and Boom Studios, it's Morphin time, it's Mutant time. The Mighty Morphin Power Rangers and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are joining forces for the ultimate crossover. A 5-part series is coming this December from Boom Studios and IDW Publishing.
And I'll read it.
Of course you will, because we'll have to cover it on this podcast at some point. I will say that I, as a 13-year-old when Power Rangers started, I have this evolution from childhood to teenager. I had He-Man, I had Turtles, I had Transformers, I had Thundercats, I had Voltron, I had all these cool action shows, and then, in the 80s and the 90s, like Disney Afternoon and things like that. When Power Rangers came on, I was like, ooh, what's this? And even though I was 13 years old at the time, I'm like, ooh, these are kind of like action heroes for the 90s, yada, yada, yada. So I've followed the franchise over the years, over the 25, 26 years it's been around. I have been reading and we have been reviewing the Boom Studios main ongoing for Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. It is everything that any one of the original show wanted, because it's slightly more serious. It's not as... There are plenty of hokey things in the original MMPR shows. So, again, both companies are doing such great work with each of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles franchises that we already had TMNT Batman, or Batman TMNT whatever, between IDW and DC. We've had other things that TMNT have done why not Power Rangers? I mean, the last thing after this that we need to get done is, TMNT Daredevil.
They keep hitting every crossover except the one that matters. I've wanted to read that Power Rangers series, or I've been curious about it. It hit me in middle school, and it was only too late because at that point it was you were too cool to go to those things. And no, I was a big nerd, but I remember going to see the original movie in the theater, and me and my friend Eric were buying our tickets saying, yeah, we're previewing it for his sister, Shirley. And we were hamming it up like we knew that they knew that we actually wanted to see it. But we just played it out because it was funny. But yeah, it hit me a little too late to really get into it, but I did watch it because it was like, oh, it's a live-action Voltron. Except, wow, those costumes suck.
They got better over time. So yeah, that's IDW. It is IDW 2020. This is episode 360 of the Pull Bag. We've told you where everybody can be followed and yada yada yada. I'm sure I've repeated myself where I can be found online at TFG and Mike on Twitter. You can also follow at the Pull Bag and at Geekcast Radio as well. Where can the people find you online, sir?
I need to get my Twitter back up and rolling. I just don't know how to use it. But until I do figure out how to use it, I am at the Old People's page, known as facebook.com/geekstuffgarage where your grandma hangs out.
No, both of mine are dead. Thank you.
Oh.
Maybe their ghosts hang out there. Oh, great. Now we got to call the Ghostbusters. Anyway, Make Your Great Escape into Comics. Coming up next week, Joe and I will be back as we finally get back to, or we continue on with Batman TMNT, because Batman TMNT 2 has been out for a while. Batman TMNT 3 is currently being published.
Oh, man, we should talk about the TV, or the movie that released on Blu-ray.
Yes, we should, as soon as I end up watching it. I still haven't watched Transformers Bumblebee yet, so I got to do that before the end of the month.
Yep.
So there is that. So we will catch you next week. Make your greatest game into comics, and keep reading those books, folks.
I wish this moment could last forever.
You've just heard the latest episode of The Pull Bag, the GCRN's first comic review and discussion podcast. There are several ways to get in touch with us and leave feedback for the show. You can visit the website, geekcastradio.com, where you can comment on the episode and all of our different podcasts. You can rate and leave a review for the show on iTunes. Be sure to leave us feedback. Become a fan of us on Facebook, facebook.com/thepullbag. Send us an email, feedback at geekcastradio.com. Follow us on Twitter at thepullbag and at geekcastradio. So until next time, make your great escape into comics and unleash the geek in you.